as a result of that. And so I appreciate it, and I know they do as well. For the sake of maybe some who are new and have not heard, let me just briefly tell you how my going to Costa Rica came about. Back in 2009, even earlier than that, there was a couple who were converted in Tampa, Florida. And they were initially contacted by a man and a woman who got out of their car and waved to them walking down the street, and basically invited them to come to church the next Sunday, just as they were just passing by, and Walt got out of his car and said, "Hey, why don't you come to church Sunday?" And the guy, instead of just keep walking, the guy actually stopped and turned and walked toward Walt and said, "We'll be here." Now, if that happened to you, you probably would think, well, those people aren't going to come. They're not going to show up. But they did. Not only did they show up, Walt Hunter and his wife Louise began to study with Sergio and Celia Chavez and converted them. They became New Testament Christians, for which we're grateful and thankful. And so a year or so after that, Sergio came to me. They were worshiping at university where I was working then, working and worshiping. Sergio came to me and said, "Would you go to Costa Rica and help try and teach my family the gospel?" And of course, I wanted to do that. And I said I would be glad to. So initially, 2 or 3 of us, as I remember, went those first couple of trips, primarily to talk to Sergio and Celia's family, all of their family for the most part were at that point in time living in Costa Rica. So Sergio went with us, Celia went with us, and we began the process of trying to have studies with their family. They were cordial to us, but that didn't produce what we had originally hoped. But over the course of those first couple of trips, we made friends and began to worship with a group of Christians who were meeting in Alajuela, which is close to the capital city of San Jose. And so that's when I met Santiago Soto. Santiago's been preaching there for a number of years, and I met his family, Maricela, Josue, and Abby. And I began to get close to them. And so instead of really going back and focusing our attention on trying to reach Sergio and Celia's family, we had felt like that we had made a good effort to do that. And because Santiago and the brethren at Alajuela had asked us to not stop coming, but to then keep coming and try to help them in the work that they were trying to do, we wanted to do that. And as is the case when you're meeting new people, especially I think when they're out of the country and it's a foreign work, or you're going to an area of the country or an area of the world where a lot of things are new, you have to build that relationship. And so this past trip, I think, was my 10th trip. So in the interim between those first two and this trip, we have, I think, built a relationship with this group of people. That's what they have told us. We feel that way. The ones who go with me certainly feel that way. And I think they do as well. So a few trips ago, Santiago kind of pulled me off to the side and basically said, we know you want to come, we know you want to help, and we want you to keep coming. As a matter of fact, he said, people have come in the past, and they come for a couple of times, and if it's not what they want, if it's not what they're looking to do, they've kind of given up on us. And it was one of my goals when he told me that if it was at all possible, that I wouldn't do that I would try to stay with them and stick with them. And such has been the case, and it has been a great blessing to me. And hopefully in some way it has been a blessing to them. In terms of this group, Kyle has been with me. Kyle made one trip with me in which he and I went down there it was a very short trip for a couple of specific reasons, but he was able to go. So he has been there. I know Mitch and Patty have been there. They have been, I don't know that they've been to the church where I go specifically, but they've been in Liberia and some other places in Costa Rica. So they're familiar with some of the area as well. But it has been something that has been a blessing to me. Bob Owen told me years ago when I began going, he said, if it's something that you keep doing, it's going to get in you, and it's going to be hard for you not to do it. And certainly that's been the case with me. And so each time I go, I feel like I build a better relationship with the people who are there. And over the past couple of times specifically, really the primary thing that we try to do when we go is we try to help the Christians. We want to help them. We want to teach anybody who will be willing to study, but our primary point is trying to reach those and trying to help those who are already Christians so that they then can go out, they can reach their their neighbors, their friends and neighbors, and maybe even others as well. So that's our primary goal, is to help them. So when we go, we spend most of our time with those who are part of the church at Alajuela. And that has been a real blessing for me. It's been a blessing for my daughter Jenny, whom most of you know. Jenny has gone with me. She went with me this past time. This was her third trip. And I think it's kind of in her blood as well. So I'm grateful for that. And I'm going to show you some others that go with me as well. But I just want to tell you about this particular trip, because we did do some things that we had never done before. And it's taken this time for us to feel like we can suggest some things to them. One of the things that I'm very clear about what I'm not doing then. I'm not going down there to try and tell them what to do. That's not my purpose. That would never be my purpose. And I think they have appreciated that about my coming, is that I'm coming down there and I've told them, I'm here to help you. You tell me what I can do to help you. And now, of course, now they want me to offer things. What are some things we can do? So we got to that point last year. And so from the time I went last year to the time that we just got back, we had planned some of the things that we did this year. And the interesting thing about it, and the reason I want to talk to you about it, is this is the first time they've ever done anything like this. But we had what we would call a vacation Bible school. It was limited. It's not, in a lot of ways, it's not like what we have here. But there are some ways in which it's similar. But they're so unfamiliar with the concept. When I told Santiago I wanted us to try to have a VBS, he wanted to know what VBS stood for. So I told him most of you would know if I said VBS, you would know what that means. That's just obviously an acronym for something that we say is a time when we're going to study and have something, a lot of times especially for the kids when school is out. And I began to explain that. But this was for everybody. Kids were included in it. And it was at a time in July when they are out of school. They're out of school in December, to my knowledge, in December and July. And so the July 10th through the 18th was a very good time for us to come. And so that's what we plan to do. And if all goes, if the good Lord wills, we'll try to go during a similar time next year. But let me just share a few things with you about that. And again, if these are things that you've already heard me say, then so be it. But I'm going to try to go through this pretty quickly, but just make you aware of maybe why this was an interesting trip specifically. Of course, just Costa Rica sits in Central America. Panama is to the south, Nicaragua is to the north. And during this particular time, we had visitors from both Nicaragua and Panama. So we were pleased about that. But we actually go in, when we fly into San Jose. And of course, there's the church in Alajuela. So you see it's centrally located. All right, I want to talk to you about these folks, because these are the folks who went with me. And I want you to appreciate them the way that I do. This is Brent Lewis. Brent preaches and works with a church in Lakeland, Florida. He actually works with Wilson Copeland. That may be a name that some of you are familiar with. Wilson preaches in Lakeland as well. And Wilson spends a lot of time these days in China. And matter of fact, it was Wilson's father-in-law who helped convert Sergio and Selah initially. But Wilson goes there, and Brent works with him at a church in Lakeland. And so one of the things that Brent's done in his life, he's preached a lot of different places, but he also helped produce Christianity Magazine. That was probably a magazine that some of you got several years ago. And we've had several of the men who wrote for that particular publication, like D. Bowman and Ed Harrell and Sewell Hall and Paul Earnhardt, those guys. And then Brent was part of that. And Brent would write, and not only write, but he would help organize that. And he was kind of the main guy that helped produce that. But Brent does a good job, and Brent's retired and can go. And I think he told me this may have been his fourth trip. I couldn't remember exactly, but Brent did a great job, as I would expect him to. The guy next to him is a guy named Jim Kirby. Jim is from Stephenville, Texas. He just recently retired after teaching math at Tarleton State University. Jim's a very smart guy. He's a PhD. He teaches a lot of upper-level math courses, but more than anything else, he's a Christian. And he's one of the most talented, disciplined men that I've ever known. He's also one of the funniest fellows I've ever known. But when I talked to Jim about my work, he said, well, is that something that I could do? And I said, well, I think it is. He'd made one other trip to Peru since he had retired, and so he wanted to go. And I thought it would be good to take him. And Jim did a great job. I'll tell you more about that maybe in a minute. This gentleman right here is Blaine Malore. This is his daughter, Kathleen. They worship with the Embry Hills Church in Atlanta. He is an executive for Clorox, the bleach company. And Blaine travels a lot, but that's subsided a bit, and he's able to do some other things. And I'm going to tell you why he and Kathleen, how they initially found out about it. Again, this is his daughter, Kathleen. Let me go ahead and introduce you to Bill and Heather Sanchez. This is Bill here in the white shirt. This is Heather. This is his wife. They've only been married a few months. Bill is bilingual. He is from the Dominican Republic, but he works and worships with the Embry Hills Church. Does a great job. His family lived in New York City. If I'm not mistaken, he was converted there, and is just a great talent. And that's probably not the word to use, but he's so capable with everybody, and because he's bilingual, he was such a help to me. But the way that Blaine and Kathleen heard about my trip, and it's was because Kerry Keenan, who's that gentleman right there, Kerry has gone with me all but I think 1 or 2 times when I have gone. Kerry and I worked together for many years at Florida College. We were both coaches there at the same time, and we grew to love each other. Kerry was converted when he was playing minor league baseball. And when I tell you he's converted, I mean he is converted. I don't know of a person who loves the Lord more than Kerry Keenan. Right now, he has, in the past several years, he works with the Temple Terrace Church there in Temple Terrace, Florida. And Kerry does a lot of teaching and is very committed. He's made several trips overseas and has gone with me. But Kerry recommended Bill to me. He knew Bill, and he said, listen, you need to take Bill Sanchez and take Heather with you as well. So Bill, I got in touch with Bill, and Bill said, yeah, I'd love to go. I'd met him when I was in a meeting in Roswell, Georgia, back in April. They came over, and we got to talking about it. We'd already decided that they were going to go. So I was excited about that. Bill did just an outstanding job. Heather, his wife, is Sewell Hall's granddaughter. That may give you a connection. So that's who that is. But I'll tell you a little bit more about Bill in just a minute. I mentioned Kerry. Of course, that's my daughter, Jenny. I think you know who that is. And this young lady right here is Annabelle Batista. Annabelle lives in Tampa. She is engaged to my nephew. I guess it would be Beth's nephew as well. She's engaged to Emily Hibbett Sullivan. She's engaged to Corey. And they're going to be married in March. But as you can probably tell, she is from, where's she from? Where? Yeah, I think it is the Dominican. I had a little I couldn't think there for a minute. But anyway, she's very capable. And of course, she's bilingual. My daughter Jenny said, Dad, you need to take Annabelle because she can help with the kids' classes. And believe me, I was thankful she was there. She not only helped with the kids' classes, but she helped when we were just talking to different people. You can imagine me just having conversations with people, and somebody want to talk to me, and I'd have to go grab somebody. Come over here, that's kind of what I was doing. So Annabelle, and of course several helped me do that, but Annabelle was one of them. But she did a great job, and I'm so thankful. So these were the 10 that went with us, and I'm so appreciative of them. We have yet to talk really about what we want to do next year, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute in terms of what we did discuss while we were down there. But these were the folks that went with me. And what I've done is I've just put some slides up here. I don't know that they're in a lot of order. Jackson has done his usual to help me. When Jackson goes off to school, I'm pretty much done for. I'm going to depend on Shane. So Shane just got to know ahead of time that's going to happen. But these guys have really helped me put this together, and I really appreciate that. But I just want to show you some slides and just kind of tell you the story about what's going on. This is the vehicle that we used. This is Santiago. This is the preacher, who is the preacher at Alajuela. This is his son, Josue. This is Jim, this is me, and this is Danny. Danny is a cousin to Santiago's wife, Maricela. And Danny he owns this bus, and he drove this bus for us all week. He has different jobs, and Santiago asked him if he would drive for us and help us. And I mean, it was a tremendous help to us because all of us could get on that bus and even take a few others with us. So that was a tremendous help. Well, the first afternoon, we went to this. I'm going to show you more pictures in a minute. That's the school we were at where we had our vacation Bible school. And we had the meetings at night. So the second day we were there, we went to check and see that. So that's what that picture's from. And then while we were doing that, Jenny was at Abby's house, at Santiago's house, and they were baking cookies. And then later that day, this is the food we ate. I wish you could smell some of that because it was really good. I'm not altogether sure I put that picture in there, except it just looked real good. I did that for Mitch, right, Mitch? That's why I did. I wanted you to see. And I also want you to know that most of that's healthy, right? Randy, would most of that be? You don't know? Okay, well, I'm just trying to make myself feel good now. Anyway, that was kind of the first day. This was the only, what I call the only, well, it's not the only fun thing we did, but this was kind of the non-spiritual activity that we did. We went to this waterfall that you see behind us. It was about an hour and a half away from where we were. We stopped, and of course they had roadside things. There's Santiago, and there's Blaine, there's me, and there were several things. I think those are plums. They had some strawberries there as well, but it was just a fun time for us to kind of get to know them. I knew everybody, but some of the folks with me were new, so it was a good time for us to be together. And we enjoyed that a great deal. All right, this is on the bus. That's Annabelle, of course, and that's Jim. Now I'm going to show you a short clip of Jim telling a joke, and I'm going to do this because it just kind of brought us all together. Not just the joke, but the fact that the whole tenor of us being together was fun when we weren't doing spiritual things. That was fun, of course, in a different kind of way. But Jim's just this kind of guy. So I just want you to listen and see if you catch what he said. Did you get that? He vanished without a trace. That's a joke in Spanish. I just wanted to make sure you understood that, okay? As I said to you, Jim's very talented, and he kind of kept us loose. I'm just going to tell you that. Jim was a great guy, and we kind of had him in the middle of the bus, and when the people in the back got tired of listening to him, he'd come up and talk to us in the front a little bit. But it was actually a really good situation. All right, Wednesday night we met in the hotel. This was some of the group. I think I've already introduced you to most of those folks. And Bill spoke to us that night. He gave a good lesson from Mark 5. You're probably going to be hearing some of this a little bit later. I'm giving away my source on this. But it was a great lesson about evangelism. And, of course, him growing up in New York City and him doing some work in Atlanta. I mean, he is, I don't know what else to say, but he's on fire for the Lord. And I would love, and I'm hoping at some point soon we can have him come here. He's just really an outstanding younger man. And his lesson that he taught us that night I thought was really good, and good for us to hear about evangelism and trying to reach people with the gospel. All right, that just gives you an idea of maybe some of the infrastructure. Not real good, but in terms of Central America, it's pretty good. It's not near as bad as I understand it. I've not been to any other countries, but as I understand it, it's not as bad as some of those countries in terms of that kind of thing. But you can see a lot of the houses had, bars and things for security purposes. And it I don't know exactly how I describe it, but if you've been to any South American or Central American country, you've probably seen this kind of thing. But that gives you an idea of where we were. Together we passed out 2,200 flyers. These are the flyers they were talking about. The Word of God talks about reunion. That stands for meeting. It gives the times of the meeting. It says where we're going to be at the Academy of Modern Technology. I'll show you that in a minute. And on this side are the list of topics that were being discussed. On Saturday of the VBS, we had the different men. We gave different lessons on different things, and that told people. One of the things that we decided we're going to change is this did not tell when we were going to have, what times we were going to have these lessons. That's partly because you don't exactly know when you're going to start, and you don't exactly know where you're going to end there. So to put things on fire to say we're going to start at a certain time, that could be a little bit misleading. But they want us to do that. Santiago felt like if we did that might give some people who saw it a reason to come at specific times. Of course, there's a telephone number and there's email if you want more interest. This is Eduardo. He's one of the young men in the church there. Such a humble young man, and like a lot of those young people, they speak English, and I use Eduardo and Josue as some of my translators, but that's obviously Jim. The day we did this, we broke up into 4 groups. We had 4 people who were bilingual. So we broke up into 4 groups, and each group of 3 had 1 translator. So we went different places. These were some of the places that we went. We're just kind of, in that picture, I'm just trying to organize with the help of some of them who know the area, but we're just trying to organize and decide who's going where. I went with Jenny. That's Jenny and Annabelle, and Jenny's giving a flyer to that gentleman. I'm sure she's trying to speak English or Spanish to him, and Annabelle's trying to see if she's doing a good job at it. And of course, I'm taking a picture because I have no idea what anybody's saying. But that's what's going on. That's Marvin. That's Santiago's brother. He's a very strong Christian, and he helps a lot with what goes on in the church at Alajuela. Then this is me, and we're in the park, and I don't know if you can maybe recognize, but I'm talking to 2 Mormons. There's another Mormon over here. There was a table over behind this woman. The Mormons had already infiltrated the park, and evidently they had been there for several weeks. And so we engaged them and talked to them. I don't think they were too excited about the fact that we were there passing out flyers for the VBS and the meeting. But nonetheless, I had some real good conversations. Once we all saw that, we all kind of went to different ones of those and stayed with them a good while because we were having some pretty good conversations. But anyway, we had passed out flyers in the neighborhood like they're doing here, and then we went to this park, and the park was full of people. So, I mean, we just would stay in the park, and people were they weren't necessarily coming to us, but they were walking by us. And they were receptive to us giving them a flyer. Unfortunately, we didn't have many show up, I don't think, as a result of the flyers, but of course you never know. It would probably be like us passing out flyers here. If we did that in the community, we may or may not get somebody. In the past, we've put advertisements in the newspaper to try and encourage people to come to special things that we're having here, and occasionally you'll get somebody to come. And there's good reason to continue to do that. And we felt like for this first effort, we wanted to pass those out. And may I say this to you, the good thing about this is that we were planning, one of the reasons that we went a couple of days early was we were going to spend 2 days helping them pass out these flyers. A week before we were going to go, Santiago sent me an email and said, the church here has decided we're going to pass out the flyers. That was a wonderful thing for me to hear because they weren't going to wait on us. They wanted to get these out. They were excited about that. So they passed out about 1,500 before we got there. And then over the course of the day we were there, all of us together passed out about 700 to different people. So that was exciting for me that's something they had never done, yet they wanted to do that. They had gone to Santiago and said, we want to do this. So I was excited that they were able to do that. This is the one piece of Spanish that I can figure out because it's pretty much all in English, but the Academy of Modern Technology. This was the name of the school where we had the Vacation Bible School, and Santiago helped secure that. And again, because school is out of session, it was a good place for us to have it. It's not that close to where the church meets in downtown Alajuela, but it was a good facility. It was a very good facility, especially for that part of the city, of the town. And so that we were able to secure that and have our meeting there. This was the inside. It was kind of an open pavilion. It was covered. That's Santiago. You can't really tell it, but these are chairs from the church in Alajuela. They took the bus that I showed you, and he and Danny, the driver, and I think Marvin and maybe a couple other guys loaded the chairs in the bus and brought the chairs to this school. There were other chairs that the school had that we were able to put out, so there were other chairs. I want you to notice this. You see these double deckers right there? That was for us big people, just so you know. I just wanted to know. And a couple of those people said, Kenny, this chair be for you. I said, well, thank you very much. So I sat in those several times, and others did as well. But I really appreciate that. They went to a lot of effort. Once they secured the building, they went to a lot of effort to help us. And really, it was a great venue for us to have this. The plan is for us to go back next year as well. So I was very pleased about that. That's what it looks like from the front. Obviously, that's the idea of secondary school. But this It's dark, but you're looking into the area where we were. And then this is if you're looking outside toward the street, that's what it looked like out toward the street. So you could see if people wanted to come in the gate, if they did have cars, which a few did, not everybody, but they would come in the gate and just park here during the activities, which is what they did. This was the opening night of the meeting, and obviously you could tell by that it was at night. You can see the lighting. Most of the lighting, of course, was on the side. There were classrooms on the side, again, which was conducive to us having classes, which I'll show you in just a minute. But this is Josue. This is Santiago's son. He has been my main translator since I arrived, and he and I have just kind of hit it off. And I love him. He is genuine. I think he told me he was 24 years old. He and Eduardo, I think, are the same age, 24, maybe 23. But they just do a great job. And he even worked overtime early so that when we got there, he could help us. And there were days where he gave us when he needed to be at work because he said, this is more important. This is what I need to be doing. So I really appreciate that. And I told him many times, I said, Josue, I do not want you to do this and lose your job or have anybody affected negatively by you not being there. He said, I've got it taken care of. So I felt very good about that. But he's always a big help to me. But this was the opening night of the meeting. And then the next day, we had classes. These classes were in the side classrooms. There were 4 classrooms. And so during the day, we decided to branch out and have, since we had several men go with us who can teach and who can preach, I had designated given them each some specific assignments. This is Brent teaching here. That's Josue translating. And I think this was the lecture on Can a Child of God Be Lost? You think, well, what do you talk about? You talk about the same things we talk about. Biblical subjects that are important for people to hear. And so one of the subjects that Brent had on the first of that morning was that subject. So he's presenting his material there. Of course, that's Carrie. And that's Eduardo, who is translating for him. This is Jim, and Josue is translating for him. During part of Britt's lesson, there was a man cleaning those windows on the outside. So, you just never know. There were people mowing the yard. I mean, nothing, evidently there's not much communication. So you kind of have to work through, and those of you who've been in places like this, you know that sometimes you have to just adjust as you go. So that's what we did as well. And then this is Bill, and Bill translated for himself. It was a very interesting thing. He would speak and then he'd translate, speak and translate. And sometimes he'd get so wound up by it. It was just, it was almost too hard to hear and to understand. And even those Spanish speakers told me later, said, he just needs to slow down a little bit. But part of his speaking fast, that's him, but he's also so excited about what he has to say. And they see that. And that's why I think he was so effective. But all these men were very effective. And I think I've got I'm not sure that's one slide. This is, let me go back. Hang on. This is Donaldo's family. Donaldo preaches in Liberia. He is a lawyer, but yet he preaches. And when you helped with the bathrooms at a gentleman's house, this was at Donaldo's house. So the church now meets. It was meeting at the house, but because they have these bathroom facilities, they're able to put up a sign and let people know what's going on. But Donaldo preaches there. This is his wife. This is their son. His name is Donald. This is Anna. Donald is almost a physician. Anna is a nurse. This is Sebastian. If you're a baseball fan, his shirt says, "You can't hit what you can't see." So they talk trash in Costa Rica just like they talk trash in America. But this is a great couple. They were only able to come Friday night. But again, as I said, he preaches and works with the church in Liberia. And I'm grateful that they got to come. They made the effort to come. And travel for them is not like travel for us. To make an effort to come as far as they did takes quite a bit of effort. And I very much appreciate what they did. This is just me during the day. And Josue, I'm not sure what I'm saying, but I look like I'm fairly animated about that. This is Marvin leading our singing. On one of the days, and I'm going to play a little bit of it for you because you'll recognize the song. You may not recognize the words, but you can figure it out. But Marvin's a very good songwriter. They have several who are good songwriters, but I want to play a little bit of it for you. Yes, You recognized the song, didn't you? Yeah, stand up for Jesus. And most of what they sang, as a matter of fact, Marvin had asked me about what songs did he think we knew. And I told him some of the songs that we knew. So he went and made copies in English so we could sing them. So in several of the songs, they were singing Spanish, we were singing English. I don't know that it sounded real good in terms of what we were saying, but everybody knew what we were trying to do. So that made us feel better about it. But we enjoyed singing with them, and they love to sing, kind of like us. I think they enjoyed doing that. All right, and this was me on Sunday morning. I was preaching, and that's Jose translating for me. I'm going to share with you about a minute of this. I just want you to hear maybe some things that I was saying. This was kind of in the middle of my lesson Sunday morning, but I want you to just listen, if you would, to kind of what we were doing here. And the Apostle Paul talked about that a lot in all of his epistles.
Y el apóstol Pablo nos habla de eso muy seguido en sus epístolas.
Being baptized only takes just a minute.
Ser bautizado solamente toma unos pocos minutos.
Changing your life takes a lifetime.
Pero cambiar su vida toma mucho tiempo.
So the demand to change is great if you want to be a Christian.
Pero el cambio va a ser genial y muy grande si quieren ser cristianos.
If you're here this morning and you've never been baptized for the remission of your sins,
Si ustedes están aquí y no han sido todavía bautizados por el perdón de sus pecados,
you need to do that today
deberían hacer eso hoy mismo.
so that your sins can be washed away.
Así sus pecados podrían ser lavados.
But when you do that, you need to understand something.
Pero cuando hagan eso, tienen que entender algo.
God is going to ask you to walk a different kind of way.
Dios les va a preguntar, les va a pedir que cambien su forma de andar.
A way that puts sin to death in your life, no longer.
De una manera en que podamos enterrar el pecado, que ya no vivamos más.
I want you to turn to 2 Corinthians 5, please. That just gives you a taste. And the reason I want to share that with you is because Josue and I, now that if I'm speaking, I typically want him because I've kind of got a rhythm now, and I know how much to say and how much not to say, and he's kind of got that as well. And I like it because now he's kind of reading my mind. And so I've used him, and I, as I said to you, I love him. I value who he is, and he's the kind of young man that he's not only helping now, but he is the future in a lot of ways of that church. He and Eduardo and another young man that I'm going to show you named Gabe a little bit in just a minute. But that's kind of that's what was happening on Sunday morning. But it was a good service, and we were excited about that. These are some pictures from the children's classes. Obviously, these young ladies did a great job, and they got very close to these kids, and they got very close to the parents of these kids as well. To my knowledge, they don't have a class at Alajuela. They don't have a class for the children. So what these girls did, and what many of you, especially you ladies, helped do, you helped produce materials for them that Jenny was able to take. And it was a tremendous help. They used most of those materials. And the families there were amazed at what was brought and what these young ladies did. So again, they were so appreciative. Multiple times they would tell me, thank you so much for coming and thank you for helping. And during the classes, a lot of times when they would have these classes, that's Kathleen reading. And Kathleen speaks Spanish very well. That's another thing I didn't tell you. She speaks it well. And so she was in Bill's classes. Bill teaches some Spanish at Embry Hills, and she would go in that class at Embry Hills to help with her Spanish and to hear Bill teach. She'll be a freshman at Furman University this coming fall. But she did a great job. Of course, that's Jenny. That young man's named Fabian. That's Eduardo's little brother. Of course, that's Annabelle. And you can see some of the materials that all of you helped make. That's Heather helping a young man. And having 4 women there in classes where you might have 8 or 9 kids, it was a tremendous help because a lot of these kids that needed some personal attention got it. Just like in classes here, you might have a young person in the class, a child, and he or she might need some special attention. So to have somebody there who can focus on that child was a tremendous help. But as I said to you, all of these ladies were involved. They did a great job with that. Listen to this. You know that song, don't you? He got the whole world in his hands. I'm not going to sing the Spanish version for you, but you heard that. This is Abby. This is Josue's sister, Santiago's daughter. She was in there, and she wanted to be in there, and they wanted her in there so she could kind of see what they were doing. And toward the end of the VBS, the last couple of times they met, we met, they had the children's classes, and several of the mothers came in. And one woman, when it was over, told Jenny and some of these girls, she said, I want to start doing this with our kids. It just warmed my heart to hear what she had to say because of what she saw happen with not only her daughter, but with other kids who were there. And again, that's not something that they're able to get. So this was one of the most heartening things about the trip to me. Everything else went well, I thought, but this was one of the most heartening things. All right, let me move on. I get that's Bill. If you may not be able to tell, but that's Bill, and he was up animated. This is Brother Zapata, who preaches at Alajuela, and I want you to look at him. He is mesmerized by Bill. He's just like, he's watching this because Bill, he's good, he's knowledgeable, and he's enthusiastic, and they loved him. And of course, he was translating for himself, but I was very impressed, as I said. I was impressed with all of them, but Bill did a great job. All right, that's just a picture of the girls. I'm going to kind of run through these last ones. That's Santiago. This was after we met on Sunday. We had 3 services on Sunday, kind of back to back to back. And then actually we had 4, I think. And we came back and had one more after lunch. So that's Santiago there. That's Josue, who's translating for his dad. Santiago's doing better. He's learning English better than I'm learning Spanish. Let's put it that way. So he's got one up on me. But it warms my heart to hear what he had to say. He got up in front of everybody who was there and expressed his appreciation for the fact that we had come and for the fact that he was very grateful and thought it helped. And that made me feel good. Of course, that's Blaine, Carrie, and Brent. They're listening to what he's having to say right there. That says basically, if you want studies, fill out one of these forms. Right there. That's the song book we use, the Spanish song book. These are the forms. And so if we had visitors, they'd fill out the form, put it in there, and then they would follow up. That's one of the things we're trying to help them do. We want, if people come and they're interested, because they've never really tried anything like this. So if people came and they were interested and they fill that out, then that gives them something to follow up on when we leave to try to have these studies with them. This is just kind of after it's over. I mean, you see what we're doing. This is a young lady named Monica. She and Jenny became very close. She's a Christian. Her family isn't. That's pretty common. So there's Annabelle, of course. She's trying to help all of us. There's Josue. These are the translators. There's Eduardo. So again, you try to find somebody pretty close. The guy I got my arm around there is named Carlos. I'm going to tell you something about him in just a second. Well, I'm going to tell you right now. This is Carlos. He's a new Christian. Again, obeyed the gospel. Somebody asked him to come, and he obeyed the gospel. And just a wonderful thing. He can't speak a lot of English, but you could tell when he tried. He wanted all of us to get together because he wanted his picture made with all of us, and we appreciated that. But I'm very thankful for him. I've become his Facebook friend, so we're starting to communicate something like that, and I'm grateful about that. This is Carlos's sister, Fabiola. About a week after we got back, Marvin, who's Santiago's brother, sent me this video. And he said, Fabiola obeyed the gospel. We baptized her today, and she told us that part of why she wanted to be baptized was because of what y'all had done while you were down there. So this was a wonderful thing for us too. So this is just the video. I just want to share it with you. That's Santiago.
Eso, más fácil, pero ni en San Gil, dicen.
That's Marvin. He gets excited about everything. But he wanted to send. He shared that with us, and I wanted to share that with you. That's just a wonderful thing. This was the sign we put up. Welcome Bible studies today for all ages. Please come. I've been working on that for a month just so I can tell you what that said. I'm kind of impressed with myself. That's Eduardo, who looks like he's hanging himself back there. But we put that on the street out here, and there were some who walked by and at least read it. So we were hopeful that some might come. Of course, this is Bill. Bill tried to photobomb every picture we took. This is Carlos. This is the new Christian. This is Brother Zapata, who preaches in Alajuela. This gentleman's from Panama. I don't remember his name. And this gentleman, this is his man and his wife. They were there for Saturday. They're from Nicaragua. And if I'm not mistaken, he preaches. I wish I could tell you their names, but I did not write those down. But again, they were there. And it was good to have them. They seemed to really appreciate and enjoy what we were trying to do, what we did. That's a bad picture of all of us on the bus, a dark picture, but I wanted to kind of show you about that. That was really the first day. This was a place we went to eat that was close to the hotel. We ate there several times because it was close, because you could get bottled water and a variety of other things. But this was before, I was going to say, I think this might have been even before Annabelle was with us, but I'm not sure. She came on Thursday, but I'm just not sure about that. But this was very close to the hotel. Again, I've showed you that picture. This was a lot of times after the service, Santiago and I would get together, and we'd need a translator, and I wanted to be able to hear this, and Bill would translate for both of us, and it helped us. So sometime we had to adjust on the go because of what they call Tico time. That's when, people just show up, and when they get there is when you start, when you finish is when it's over. It's not like it goes from this time to this time. So sometimes we had to adjust with all that. That's just Annabelle teaching, and that's Kathleen reading a story, and Annabelle teaching, of course. And the kids, I went in several times and just watched. The kids were they were so interested in what the girls did, and they did such a great job. And I wanted you to see that about that, and know you did a lot of good things. I think I've shown that. That, of course, is the baptistry that they had. That's a little plastic swimming pool. That's where Fabiola was baptized. I think that was at Santiago's house, what I just showed you. But they brought that in case anybody did want to be baptized. This was at the very end of everything. We were all getting ready to leave. And Jim Kirby, not only is he a math man, he is a magician. And he is a good one. I mean, he is a real good one. And so he did a few things for them to kind of add a little something to what they did before they left. And Jim wanted to do that, and I thought that'd be a good thing. So you can tell they're all having a good time, and everybody's messing about. That's Brother Zapata again. He couldn't believe it. Matter of fact, Jim juggled a little bit, and when he got finished, Brother Zapata got up there and he juggled too. He didn't know he could juggle, but he got up there and did it too. But I tell you that because those are the kinds of things that help build a relationship, and that was a good thing for us to do with them. Of course, this is Jenny and Heather. This is Camila. I think her name's Camila. And she is, anyway, she's one of your girls that's in the class. But I think she drew this. That says, thank God for our friends. And that's her. And then she drew, each four of these were these four girls. And so that's what she made for them. And that meant a lot to those girls, obviously. And I think you could understand why. But this was after we had eaten. This was on our very last day. This was at her grandmother's house where we were eating that day. That's Jim. He and another man were trying to figure out who could do the Rubik's Cube the fastest. And Jim did a pretty good job. But again, you try to build these relationships by doing these kinds of things. And again, this is Marsala. You can't tell, but we were at her house, and she and her daughter and others had fixed this meal for us. It was a great meal. We really did appreciate it. But this was the day before we left. This is Santiago's wife and Jenny. And I just show you this just because you get close to these people. And Jenny has gotten very close to Santiago's family. This is Santiago's wife, Marcella. And it's just kind of hard to leave once you get down and get close to them. And you feel like you're building a bond with them. But I'm always grateful when we have that opportunity. I want to tell you real quick about this. I've only got this and one more slide. This is me, obviously. This is Josue, Eduardo, and this is Gabe. Gabe is a young man that has told me he wants to preach. And we are Skyping. We haven't begun yet, but we've got plans to Skype. And I'm just going to try to help him with some of those things. But he is a younger man, and he's going to stay there. And listen, all these three young men all have great ability. And I'm hopeful that in the years to come, that they will begin to take over, if you will, in a good kind of way, some of the things that are going on there at that church. But they're the next generation to come along, and they are very genuine. As far as I can tell, they're very genuine about God and serving God, and I'm grateful. And I'm grateful that I have a relationship with all three of these. And Gabe can speak English as well, so we may be using him some as we go as well. This was the Monday after everything was done, before we came home on Tuesday. Obviously, we met at the hotel. This Santiago, Eduardo, Josue, and then Marvin, that's Santiago's brother. And we sat there and just kind of debriefed and just had a good session, a couple hour session about what we wanted to do different. And I said, at the beginning, I said, now, what we're here to talk about is we just to try and evaluate to see if you think it went well, if it did, if you think we ought to come back. And before I could get it out of my mouth, Santiago said, you're coming back. And of course, that made me feel good that they felt like some things were successful. But what we did is we talked about some other things that I think can really help us. Things like there were some churches that were within an hour or two, and some of those people weren't able to come. And I think part of that is because they couldn't afford to ride the bus. And I thought about that. Those are some things that between now and next year we're going to solve. Hopefully find transportation, try to handle the cost and those kind of things for them so that they can come. And if we have it like we had it this year, where Saturday is our primary day, we had a Friday night and Saturday and then Sunday, and if they can come for just a couple of days, hopefully that won't be a hardship on them, and hopefully we can help them do that. But that's one of the kinds of things we're talking about. Another thing that they suggested was they didn't like the fact that we had different classes going on at different times, because they wanted to be in all the classes. If they were in this class, they missed this class. And so one of the things they suggested is let's stay longer so that we can go to all the classes. Wouldn't it be great if everybody felt that way? You know, instead of wanting to go shorter, they want to go longer. And we appreciated that, because it said to us, hey, they really want what we're trying to do. And they didn't want to miss anything. They didn't want to miss any of the teaching. So we thought about that. But there were several things, and I thought it was good for us to have this. And again, this was not, this is what we think you ought to do. This was, how did it go, and what do you think we can do to help? And from my vantage point, that's been a tremendous help to them. All right. This was the last slide. This was at the waterfall, and I just wrote that because I put that in there because Marvin's just a good guy. You know, you need some people like that to just kind of keep it going and keep everything fresh, and Marvin's that guy. He wanted to take selfies all the time. So I appreciate him. He's been a big help to me, not just Santiago, but Marvin's been a big help as well. But all of these folks do a good job. Well, that's it. I went maybe 5 minutes, a little longer than I intended, but that's it. I hope that was helpful to you. I hope you have maybe a greater appreciation for what we try to do this year. Again, my vantage point said it was successful. From their vantage point, they said it was successful. And if the Lord wills, and again, I'm very appreciative of the church here, specifically the elders who allow me to go and are willing to help. You're willing to help, and they're willing to help me out of the treasury, and I very much appreciate that. That is a huge burden lifted, because if it weren't for people like this church and others, I would be unable to do this kind of thing. But frankly, it's on my heart now. It's a part of me. Every time I leave, I'm ready to go back. It's just the way that is. And as long as we can make progress with the Lord's help, then if all goes as I hope it will go, then we'll continue to try to do that. But I hope that you understand how valuable you are in this. And I hope that you feel a sense of help in this, because, again, you help. And you help in ways that I couldn't do by myself. And so I very much appreciate it, and I want you to know that. And I pray that God will continue to help the work there. I pray for those folks, and I know you do too, but please ask God to continue to help them. Well, that's it for tonight, and I appreciate so much your attention. We're going to sing an invitation song, and if you have a spiritual need, we want that you would make that known to us by coming forward as we stand and as we sing.
Who will follow Jesus, standing for the right?